Greetings, our Frederick Riddle here with another Christian News and Views. This is episode 229, and this is Friday Recap. Been an interesting week this week. We start out on Monday with Poland's foreign minister reminded Trump and the world that Russia could end the war immediately just by honoring its own treaties. That's something to think about, folks. For the record, since 1994, Ukraine has already had guarantees of independence and the inviolability of its borders, including from Russia. Moreover, on April 22nd, 2004, Vladimir Putin solemnly ratified a treaty on the Russian-Ukrainian border. All it takes is to respect them, and the war will be over. This comes after Trump claimed that Zelensky could end the war almost immediately by giving up Crimea and NATO aspirations. Sikorski's message is clear. Ukraine doesn't need to surrender anything. What's needed is for Moscow to honor the promises it already signed, promises Putin himself once ratified. And the opinion I gave then, and I still adhere to, is this is probably first of all, it was probably the shortest article I've ever done on this podcast. But let's look at this. I think Putin doesn't honor these agreements. So let me expound on it a little. One, perhaps he can't honor them because reading the documents gives him a headache. Number two, remembering past agreements is too hard, especially when it doesn't agree with current agendas. Number three, perhaps Putin is suffering from Alzheimer's. Number four, there are men who want his job, just waiting for him to slip up. He's trying to keep them at bay. Now that's getting to be a smaller number all the time because those who oppose him have a way of disappearing, maybe even losing their life. And so that's the way he works. It might be a good thing to remember that Putin's hero was Stalin, one of the cruelest men that certainly the Russians ever produced. Number five, he believes that Zelensky doesn't like him and is trying to get him to change his mind. Now, how can it possibly be that Zelensky doesn't like him? He just doesn't compute, folks. I mean, just because he's been bombing Ukraine and killing and beating and raping the women and even killing babies, that Zelensky wouldn't like him. And if that is true, doing all those things, how is that going to change his mind? Hmm. Number six, he believes his own propaganda. That is a definite possibility. Number seven, he's secretly, now this is one here I thought was very intriguing. He's secretly a spy for America trying to undermine the Russian government. And I went into detail a little bit on that as to how that might be working out. That was my extent of my humor for the week, I guess. On Tuesday, the federal immigration raids planned for Chicago and other sanctuary cities is coming in coming days after a weekend of warnings. So that last weekend there was warnings about it, and it still hasn't happened to my knowledge. But the repercussions have been going on. Whispers of imminent immigration enforcement ricocheted across Chicago over the weekend as deportation efforts escalated in Boston. And the nation's borders are vowed a much broader surge in the coming days. Now, I know that the courts get involved in all this, but I just want to remind you folks what the lower courts has to go through the court system and work its way up. But don't put too much stock in what happens on the lower courts. A lot of times they're liberal judges and they're trying to reshape the world in their image. And so, but when it gets higher, starts going up the ladder, it starts being pushed again and view their judgment is being now compared to what the Constitution actually says. And by the time it gets to the Supreme Court, It's not surprising when the Supreme Court, which is by and large has currently favors the Constitution. When conservatives are in charge, they turn to lean on the Constitution. When liberals are in charge, the Constitution doesn't really matter. They'll quote it if it fits their agenda, but otherwise they don't pay much attention to it. That's my opinion. And for further opinion, it's this. This is a sad time we are living in. Never did I envision a time when governors and mayors would ignore the constitutional authority of the federal government. The federal government, on the other hand, has tried to be calm and non-confrontational. At the same time, these politicians are urging their own police to break the law and not cooperate with federal agents. Then they protest when troops are sent in as a result. I don't like the idea of Trump's troops policing communities, but at the same time, I love the results. In Washington, D.C., the crime rate, including murders, has dwindled. In fact, since the troops have gone in, it has really dwindled considerably. And that's not a coincidence. On Wednesday, Poland said that along with NATO allies, it has scrambled warplanes to shoot down multiple Russian drones that entered its airspace during Moscow's latest attack on Ukraine, calling the incident an act of aggression. Opinion. Putin is getting reckless. It probably came as a surprise when Poland and NATO shot down his drones, but this certainly looks like he is testing NATO's self-defense agreement. Hopefully he got the correct message and will back off, but I wouldn't count on it. And so the thing here is that Russia, I mentioned earlier that Putin sort of idolizes Stalin, and he's a very just like Stalin, he's a brute. He doesn't care about the loss of life or anything of this nature. He has his goal, and he's pursuing it. He has a plan, and he's pursuing it, and he thinks that he's going to get away with it. Now, some people think that he's got Trump fooled. I don't. Trump knows who he's dealing with. He had an eye opener of a sort when he actually saw there's a difference between communicating by phone and actually in person. And the in person was revealing to him. And especially when Putin is going and saying one thing out of his mouth, and on the other hand, his troops and his Air Force and everything else were still attacking Ukraine. And so that was a wake-up call of a sort for Trump. If he didn't already know it, he now knows it. He knows what he's dealing with. And I still think that he's got the upper hand, not Putin. But also the European leaders. This whole thing has strengthened their hand. And so if he ever decides to push against the West, he's going to have a rude awakening of his own. That's Putin I'm talking about there. Now, on Thursday, I did Bible talk, and it was a little bit different than normal. It was 9/11, so the celebration or not celebration, the honoring of that day when we were attacked without cause, unless you want to consider the fact we're a Christian nation as the cause, which is what I believe. We were attacked. Almost 3,000 people died in that attack. And it is still horrendous to this day. I also talked about Charlie Kirk's assassination. They haven't caught the guy yet who did this. And he thinks of himself as a winner. I'm sure he does. But he actually is a loser. He lost out on this. By succeeding in killing Charlie Kirk, he's actually created a martyr. Charlie Kirk, in his own life, actually was bigger than life in many ways. He was not on my screen for a long time, but in the past year, he came onto my screen. I began watching him and listening to him, and he was impressive. He knew his scriptures. He knew his history. He knew government. He knew a lot of things, and he knew how to debate. And so you would get these young liberals who thought they knew everything. And the only way that their only defense against him was to holler and speak fast. Don't give him a chance to speak. But he was able to, he was able to, even with a quiet voice, he was able to undermine that attack, and he won over and over and over again. He was a force for good. He did a great deal. He was an ally of Trump and helped him get elected. He had a big influence with young people, himself being young. And now I believe he's a martyr. And he and people are the Charlie Kirk effect is going to take place. And so I spoke about him for a little while. And I think that we're not done hearing about the name of Charlie Kirk and his influence and his organization, Turning Point USA, which is I would call it a Christian conservative organization. So that's it for this past week. I hope you've enjoyed it. I enjoyed my commentary on it and I've appreciated it. My goal every time is to inform you, encourage you, and inspire you. Whether I do that or not is up to you. I do pray and I encourage you to subscribe to my channel if you haven't done so yet. I find it's always exciting to see people subscribing or following. I follow that as well. And so encourage me. If you haven't done so yet, encourage me. And I will continue to try to do those three things: to encourage, inform, and inspire. Well, that's it for today. And I will see you in the next episode.